So, Super Rugby Round 5 Saturday games, follow-up Friday, which has only got the one game, so it's kind of back to normal service with the Saturday games. So we've got 5 games on offer. We kick off with a South Island Derby game between the Highlanders, who are unbeaten with 2 wins, no losses, no draws, up against the Crusaders, who got their first loss last week against the Hurricanes. So I think both teams largely unchanged. There's been a few guys shuffled around for the Crusaders. Importantly, Sam Whitelock's kind of fit for this game. He left the field pretty early in that game against the Hurricanes, but for them, unfortunately, Crotty is not. He's not fit. So I think it's his head from memory. He's replaced by Tim Bateman, so he's a very capable replacement for them. Like I said, that Highlanders team that beat the Stormers is pretty much the same. A few guys shuffled in. Some guys swapped from the bench to the starting roles. But yeah, pretty solid. Crusaders still kind of fielding a largely, I don't want to say second string, but a lot of their guys who would be bench guys are getting starts just with the amount of injuries they've got. And believe me, a second string, even if I want to call it that, the Crusaders team is still pretty strong. So the Crusaders have won the last 3 games they've played against the Highlanders. So it's been a while for the Highlanders to taste success over the Crusaders. But I mean, the Highlanders haven't even left Dunedin yet. They've played home game, bye, home game, and they've got a 3rd game at home. So it's been pretty cushy living so far. I mean, I know some coaches kind of like to get their guys on the road early, because the guys tend to bond a lot better, like they gel more on the road because they're staying in hotels together. They're not kind of going home every day and eating with their families. They're eating as a team together, training together, just like spending all day together. So, but I mean, in terms of just like rest factor, it's pretty good for the Highlanders. The Crusaders haven't left New Zealand, so not that much difference, but this is their 2nd away game in a row, so a little bit of domestic travel for them. Someone's driving by helicopter above my house apparently. Highlanders have got an extra day rest just because they played a Friday game last week. Crusaders played a Saturday game, so don't know how much of a factor that'll be. I mean, the Crusaders have still had ample time, you would think, to get rested, but you never know. That one day could come in the last 10 minutes of the game. Interesting also that it's Aaron Major up against the Crusaders, because I mean the guy played 80 plus games as a Crusader, so he's known as a Crusader, but now he's leading the Highlanders. So yeah, just an interesting reunion. It'll be just fun to look on his face at the end result. Whatever happens, he's either going to be a winner or a loser, I suppose. Whoever wins this game, I think, is going to be pretty happy. I don't think either team is expected to go and blow the other team away. Just getting a victory for the Crusaders, don't get any more injuries. The loser will definitely want to come away with a bonus point. You would want to still be in this with 5 minutes to play if you're the team behind. It's kind of got that kind of look about it, the game. I mean, the bookies are picking the Crusaders by 1. So it's the next best thing to just stay, them calling it kind of even. So yeah, it'll be a fun one to watch. Like I said, Highlanders still unbeaten. Can they go 3-0? Yeah, I think only the Lions have done it so far, and they picked up a loss. So yeah, pretty much everybody except them and the Rebels has gone down at some point. So Highlanders will be challenged for that for sure. This is their biggest challenge of the season so far. Yeah, Crusaders will be just doing well to not get any more injuries. But seriously, they'll be targeting a result. In the next game, the Brumbies, who have been poor, come up against the Sharks team, who are slowly kind of starting to ramp things up. So the Sharks started with a loss against the Lions, then they had a bye, a draw, and then a win. So it's possible they're kind of on an upwards trajectory. For the Brumbies, it's kind of the opposite. They started with a win over the Sunwolves, and then it's just all been downhill from there. 2 pretty poor losses against the Reds and the Rebels. So opposite to the Highlanders, the Brumbies are finally get a game at home, which is a nice change. Like the Highlanders haven't left Dunedin. The Brumbies haven't been home yet. They've just been. I mean, I know Japan is a decent trip, but they've been in Australia to Melbourne and to Brisbane. So they finally get to play a game in Canberra. With their early record, you might think that the crowd maybe not what you would expect. Hopefully some people will get along. It's a South African team, so they might not get those kind of interstate travellers along. But yeah, hopefully there's a decent crowd for the first game of the season for the Canberra faithful. Dan McKellar, the Brumbies coach, has made a few changes, and you kind of can't blame him because their form, like I said, has been pretty poor. So, I mean, Carter and Man Ray are gone due to injury, but Godwin has just been plain dropped. Chance Penny is dropped. Liliafano is kicked out of the 10 jersey into 12. Wharenue Hawera comes in at 10. And Fainga and Neva replace Carter and Man Ray in the second and front row. So, yeah, it's probably the biggest shift in squad we've seen for this round, I think. But yeah, he needs to get the team going, and one article wrote it, he's swung the axe. He swung the axe. So guys who aren't performing have been told, basically, I guess, buck your ideas up, otherwise you're not going to be in the team. So we'll see how these other guys do. It's a chance for them to stake claim to a jersey. For the Sharks, they're pretty much unchanged. I guess they'll be trying to build form after a good win last week. The Sunwolves are kind of that team at the moment, anyway, that you'll look to up your own game. So that's what the Sharks will be looking to do. They have had a day less rest and travel to deal with. So if anything, the Brumbies should look the fresher team. But last week when they played the Rebels, it was pretty much the same situation, except the Brumbies were away. So they went to Melbourne, but the Rebels were coming back from Japan, and the Rebels had had one day less. But the Brumbies, the Brumbies were the ones who looked tired. So, yeah, the Brumbies need to hit the ground running on this game. They need to get a win at home, not only for the fans, but just for their form, for their coach. And yeah, it's kind of a hard one as well, because the Sharks, after a loss and a draw to start the season, need to kind of get going as well. And on a tour, the Brumbies are wounded. You'll want to be taking advantage of that. So the Brumbies will kick back into it at some point. The Sharks will be hoping that it's kind of not this week. The Sharks are a favourite by 1 point. They won by 5 in the corresponding fixture last season. From memory, that one was kind of in the last minute, but I haven't rewatched it. Right, the third game. So Stormers are back in South Africa after a pretty disappointing tour. So they went none from 3. They got the 3 losses in their tour of Australia and New Zealand. They'll be pretty disappointed that they didn't get any more than a solitary bonus point. They have been affected by injuries. And to make matters worse, as if 3 losses on the road, lots of injuries, and now having to fly back from South Africa from New Zealand to play a game. If that's not bad enough, now half of the guys have got the flu. So yes, the Blues, on the other hand, coming off a big upset win over the Lions at Ellis Park last week. So kind of things have changed. The outlook's changed for them. It was all doom and gloom after their first 2 losses, but they beat the Lions, so expectations are now there that they're going to kind of kick off and get their season underway. And team news, so for the Stormers, Marais is out, so Dylan Lades moves to 15. Engelbrecht's on the wing. Peter Steph Tudoy is back. But notable guys who've got the flu, I saw mentioned that Notch's got the flu, De Allende's got the flu, Sardi's got the flu, Janse van Rensburg's got the flu. Janse van Rensburg. So that's the only 4 they mentioned. I think they alluded to the fact that there were more, and they're going to have to make a decision about these guys kind of on game day as to whether they'll be fit or not. So yeah, that's just like a never rains it pours, right? For the Blues, pretty much unchanged. Manu's in for Hodgman. Hodgman got injured really early on in that game last week, so Manu pretty much played the whole game anyway. So not a big change from that team that beat the Lions. kind of to be expected. Stormers have got the extra day rest because they played in the Friday game last week, but like I said, they've had to travel all the way from New Zealand, catch the flu, and yeah, come back in. So the Blues' only affected aspect is the fact they're having to take short showers in Cape Town where the water situation goes on. So yeah, those are a few things going in favour of the Blues just in terms of the travel, the flu, the injuries, all that kind of stuff. So the Stormers will definitely want to capitalise on the Blues' inconsistency because the Blues are a team that will lose at home to injury-ravaged Chiefs side who had to change their fly half at like almost literally the last minute, and then they'll go to South Africa on a flight which is delayed and beat the best team in the South African Conference. So the Blues are an inconsistent team. If you're a betting person, they're a horrible team to bet on. So yeah, the Blues haven't done a double in South Africa in over a decade. So the Stormers won't want to be the team that kind of surrenders that to them. They'll want to capitalise. For the Blues, it's just kind of getting back into that form, trying to get a groove going, which is what they've not been good at in the last few years. The Stormers won the corresponding fixture 30-22 last year. The Blues are favourites by a point. So we will see. I guess the team that the Stormers end up naming on match day will be kind of a better indication of their chances. If they end up playing some guys with the flu who've just come back from a long flight, then I guess, expect some early changes. So expect some guys to play only 40 or 50. Now, the next game, so all these three have been pretty closely predicted. You know, Sharks by 1, Crusaders by 1, Blues by 1. The bookies' predictions. Surprisingly, the Lions Sunwolves is a different margin. They're not picking by 1 margin. So the Lions definitely need to bounce back after a really disappointing result last week against the Blues. A team they were expected to beat fairly comfortably, at least by 8 points, but they ended up losing it in the 79th minute. I think for the Sunwolves, if they concede less than 50 points, they'll be pretty chuffed with whatever happens. They've been another team who's had a lot of injuries, a bit of lack of preparation started to show. They've looked kind of worse as the tournament's gone on, but part of that is also due to the injuries they've sustained. So there's not been any chance for them to build anything at the Sunwolves. It's just been injuries and then more injuries and bad results. So it's kind of snowballing on them. And their record shows that they're the only team without a win. And it's going to be pretty hard for them to change that this weekend. So with Warren Whiteley out, Mostert gets the captain's role. There's going to be a bit of pressure on him just because that was one of the criticisms on the Lions last week, was a bit of lack of leadership once Whiteley went off. I know that you always look for something to blame when your team loses. I'm not sure if that was it, but I don't know the Lions leadership kind of structure enough to know who are the guys that you should be looking to kind of grab the guys by the scruff of the neck and get them to crack on. But so there'll be pressure on Mostert to do that. They are resting a few players, which seems like it's a good time to do it, like Van Rooyen and Dreyer. They are being rested, so different front row for the Lions. But I suppose if you're going to do it, a home game against the Sunwolves is the time to do it. I don't think it's a lack of respect. I think it's just squad rotation. Their bench players are no dregs, so good time for them to get some minutes. For the Sunwolves, they've moved their pack around a bit. So Labuskakni's back at 7, Leach moves to 8, Tarakawa's still at 10. So there's a bit of consistency and a few changes. Like I said, these guys need to get back to Japan with no injuries and just start to look for the second, get this first tour over, get back to Japan and just settle, because it's kind of damage minimization at the moment, I think, for them. The Lions really need to blow away the Sunwolves, to blow away the result of last week against the Blues, get a big bonus point win, no injuries, and just wipe the slate clean. They are predicted to win by 33 points, according to the bookmakers. So yeah, the Sunwolves have got a tough ask of them. In the final game of the round, for Saturday anyway, there is still the Waratahs game on Sunday. So the Jaguares take on the Reds in Argentina. The Jaguares coming off a turnaround win. So they finally got their season underway after three early losses. A much needed win for them that they had to get it. It was getting to a kind of do or die stage for the Jaguares. The Reds have been solid without being spectacular, so they've picked up 2 wins and a loss in that first round game. So they've still got Higginbotham suspended, but this is, I think, the last game that he's suspended. But, they've got 2 wins without him, so there's no reason they can't go on and do it again. The Jaguares lineup is totally unchanged, so I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They got their result last week over the Waratahs. So same squad. For the Reds, I think it's just the one change. Angus Scott Young starts, Liam Wright goes to the bench. A few changes on the bench. Andrew Reedy is back. Could show he's in favour with the coach because he's a guy who's had a few discipline issues last season. I thought he might have been in the kind of Quade Cooper area of not being wanted by Brad Thorne, but he's back on the bench, so he must have done something right if he's kind of back into his kind of good graces. For the Jaguares, last week after the win, the media talked a lot about them and didn't give them much credit. They basically said the Waratahs played rubbish, gave them too much ball, silly mistakes, and then the Jaguares just capitalised. They said anyone would have beaten the Waratahs on that performance. I'm never that kind of blanket one side or the other. I feel like if the other team gives you a chance, you've still got to take it. So I'll give them some credit for that. For the Reds, we've still got to see how they go. I mean, they're another one who's not getting a lot of credit. In the media, people are still saying, oh, well, it's just the Reds, it's just the Reds. And some of the comments as well, people are saying, can't even beat the Reds. I don't know how many wins they have to get before people talk about them in a different way, but sure seems to be an improvement on last season. Time will tell. They do have the travel factor to consider, so it's a fair trek for them over to Argentina. So we'll see. Argentinians, or the Jaguares, have been in Argentina for a while now, so they should be definitely well settled. They are predicted to win by 8 points by the bookies. So yeah, we will see. Still need to work out how I'm going to watch it. I may do my thing where I don't watch the Blues game live and just avoid all human contact, internet contact, TV contact, radio contact for a day until it can be replayed. It seemed to work for the Blues last time. Not that I'm the reason the Blues get any kind of result or not get a result, but you know what I mean. Us fans kind of get those superstitions. So we'll see. Definitely should be able to watch the first 2, so we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think is going to go on. Which do you think is going to be the game of the round? Do you think really these 3 are going to be as close as they say? 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. Can the Sunwolves stop the Lions from putting 50 on? Find out on Saturday. Alright guys, I'll talk to you again for the next one.